All right, everyone. John Kerry is doing it again, which is to say, rambling about Iran, and it seems like he a lobbyist at this point for the government of Iran? Now, I say this, it's fair criticism. I say this as someone who does not want war with Iran, who does not consider them to be a credible nuclear threat. I don't really have a problem with Iran, but it is still an Islamic regime. Marginally, now that they've got, liberals in charge of parts of their government. It is a religious regime, a theocratic society that happens to hold views that tend to run counter to the concept of the United States, to the point where their leaders, as a sort of tradition, liberal or not, say, well, death to America, we kill them all. Okay, I don't really care if people do that. It's like, you're over there, we're over here. So it's in and of itself, the words don't hurt me. But to have John Kerry, former presidential candidate, he's at least considering the possibility of running now. I give a 5% chance he runs. It's very low. If he does, there's a very, very remote chance he would be the nominee. It would be funny to see Trump completely destroy him, because he would completely destroy him. John Kerry is incapable of governing this country. He's not a credible figure to put in the presidency. We got Donald Trump, more credible a figure for decades and decades than Kerry. Kerry couldn't even beat Bush, so he's basically doomed. John Kerry, at this point, former Secretary of State, former senator, presidential candidate, he's got all these, titles within the Democratic movement, has spent inordinate amounts of time over in Iran, number one, physically. Number two, talking about Iran. This is like the dozenth time or something in the last year he's brought the issue up. And number three, he appears to compare them favorably with the U.S. government at this point. Now, I thought there were rules against people who are not actually in a proper diplomatic position attempting to conduct diplomacy with foreign states. Isn't there a law against that? I'm pretty sure that is. I'm pretty sure Michael Flynn ran afoul of that with both the nations of Turkey and Russia at this point, and is part of the Mueller probe investigation because of it. Is someone going to investigate whether John Kerry is within his rights to conduct what amounts to diplomacy? He's giving advice to the Iranian state while making visits, while having been in all of these positions. He's doing so in a predominantly political capacity. Is he being paid to say these things? Like, are the Iranians at this point actually paying him to be sort of an unofficial spokesperson within the U.S. government in some, again, technically unofficial sense? Is he violating, the Hatch Act or something like that? I think it is. I can't remember. There are a million acts to remember, so sometimes they get mixed up a bit. I find it very mysterious that we would be taking John Kerry seriously anyway, considering his disastrous bid against George W., number one. Considering his role in the Obama-era government, the spying, the drone strikes, the proliferation of terrorism across the Middle East. How can we take him seriously on foreign policy when he was, for some time, the Secretary of State for a president who, by and large, ignored that issue, which has only been resolved, really, in the last couple of years since Trump became the President of the United States? Think what you will with regards to Trump, in many moral senses, or in the social sense. On economics and on terrorism, he's done a stellar job. He's done a stellar job, by the way, on terrorism by basically doing nothing. All he does is talk about it. He said, hey, Mattis, you're coming in here, you're a tough guy, you handle the situation by and large, which is what Obama should have done. But Obama didn't do that. He listened to bureaucrats and to people like John Kerry on what he should do, ignored his military generals, and dressed them down, apparently, on a fairly regular basis when they made suggestions that he happened to personally disagree with. His idea was that the Middle East would be taken over by Islamic nationalist groups, which is hilarious since he says that that nationalism is a horrible thing anywhere else. The Arab Spring, what was the concept behind it? The Egyptian uprising of the Muslim Brotherhood, all they were a nationalistic Sharia-loving sect that wanted to supplant a military group that primarily controlled the secular government of existent Egypt. Corruption? Yeah. Graft? Yeah. Social and economic problems? Yeah. Way worse under the Muslim Brotherhood. The same happened in Tunisia. Tunisian rebel groups, representing nationalistic Sharia-loving, tried to take over. They were defeated because of Silicon Valley, believe it or not. It was a big thing at the time. They were organizing their protests and marches and they're fighting back against these Islamo-fascists on Facebook. They probably couldn't do that now. They'd get banned for hate speech or something, which is a big problem. That's why we Americans need to stand up against Silicon Valley as quickly as possible to restore order, so that we can make sure that we don't have violent theocratic coups in the world that can't even be challenged because of the micromanagement of user data and human communication. As far as John Kerry goes, the idea that we would listen to him at all on Iran or any other Middle Eastern affair, or any Central Asian affair, or really any diplomatic affair anywhere in the world, is fucking laughable. We had a story the other day, by the way, in vague relation to this, not with John Kerry, but with foreign policy. It turns out that Trump admin officials were meeting with certain individuals in Venezuela and considering the possibility of helping them stage a coup to overthrow Maduro. I actually oppose this idea because I think that whoever replaces him would be worse. I think that whoever replaces him would be even more of a strong-arm figure because of the corrupt denigration of the Venezuelan government over time. Let it collapse organically. Let the Venezuelans shoot Maduro in the neck, or bash him in the head in an alley or something. Let them take care of it. If you want to fund opposition groups, it's one thing, but to actually get ourselves involved with another Latin American coup, I think would be a terrible idea. Even if Maduro is a piece of shit, eventually the Venezuelan people will have to take care of it. Or the Latin American nations that are tired of refugee swarms. Let Colombia and Guyana and Brazil and all these other, let Peru, let them all mass their militaries and say, okay, Maduro's gone within 24 hours. You take care of him or we'll come in and take care of him. So fuck you. Why don't you have that happen? But yeah, it's dip-lomacy with regards to what John Kerry is doing. Yeah, apparently he doesn't understand diplomacy, and he was our Secretary of State for a number of years. No wonder the Obama administration didn't have a fucking coherent plan to deal with terrorism, to deal with Iran or North Korea or anywhere else. What did we do with North Korea when Obama was president? Don't you dare cross this red line, and then Kim, crosses the red line. Oh my goodness, more sanctions for you that won't work because we're not talking to the Chinese. Trump goes over, he has one conversation with Jinping, and it's all basically ironclad. No problem. No, I have great respect for Trump on foreign policy at this point. It's just that a lot of people don't manage to see it. We're in the midst of a massive jobs boom. Blue-collar jobs are growing at the fastest pace they have since the 1980s. Since 1984, that happy year under Ronald Reagan. And yet all anyone can talk about is how Trump is a miserable failure or something. They don't even understand, they don't understand that we are in the midst of a golden era economically. We're making good, steady progress, at least diplomatically. Where's this fucking problem that all these people perceive of? Where's the fucking problem? Under any other situation, if you didn't have a drastically crazy media, a corporate media that had conglomerated itself in collusion with one another in order to try to stage what amounts to a sort of soft coup, if it weren't for that, Trump's approval would be hitting 55-60% right now. Essentially every centrist in the country would be sucking him off. But yeah, instead they'd rather suck off John Kerry. Because he says, whoa, Iran is doing good things. Oh, I love the nation of Iran. Hey, give me another $1 million, you jackasses, so that I can keep going back to D.C. and spewing this bullshit. I was Secretary of State once. I got kicked to the curb in favor of Hillary Clinton because I was so shitty. That's basically John Kerry in a nutshell. That's about all. Peace out.